watched a little bit of the game, and from what I saw, they did not live up to my expectations for them coming into the season. Matt Barkley, not nearly as good as I thought he would be. So I'm a little actually concerned about this SC team. They lose to Stanford in Palo Alto. I know it's a tough place to play, but still, it's, like I said, it's a stacked roster. They lose to Stanford. They have some very tough games going to be on their schedule this year, including one I think would be potentially very, very difficult on them, including that would be UCLA.
Well, I mean, you talk about the sky-high expectations for this chosen team coming into this season. You know, they handled Hawaii pretty easily. Syracuse gave them a little bit of trouble. So you saw a little bit of worry there. Only a 13-point win over a, I don't want to say overrated, but a over-touted, I guess you could say, Syracuse Orange football team who only beat Stony Brook, a FCS team, by 11 points this past Saturday. You look at the rest of USC's schedule. They play Cal, Utah, Washington, a god-awful Colorado team. Arizona, ranked. Oregon, ranked. Arizona State, receiving votes to be ranked. UCLA, ranked. And Notre Dame, ranked. USC better start hoping that LSU or Alabama gets a loss, because their national title hopes are very slowly but surely dwindling down the drain. You don't see too many one-loss teams in the national title game. Is there any chance this USC team can still make it to a national championship?
Well, I mean, if they somehow pull out a perfect schedule from here on out, I still think that's going to happen. I think they actually lose to Oregon. I like what I've seen from the Ducks so far this season. And I also think they have a chance to lose to one of the, Notre Dame, UCLA, or Arizona, all tough teams in their own right. So I think they'll actually lose 2 more games going forward. From what I've seen so far this season, if they pull together, they're still, I think, the best team in the country, talent-wise. However, I don't really see Alabama losing. I think LSU can. If they pull out the rest of the season and only one team or 0 teams go undefeated, then I guess there's a shot, but right now I'd say it's highly doubtful.
And, I mean, you say this team has a good chance, and I completely agree with you when you say that this team has a good chance at losing 2, maybe 3 more games this season, at the least. Would this be one of the biggest letdowns in college football history? I mean, this team, like I said, had sky-high expectations. This was one of the most highly criticized, publicized, scrutinized team coming into the season. This team was going to go 14-0. They were going to go 12-0 in the regular season, win the Pac-12 championship game, and win the national championship. Matt Barkley was going to get the Heisman, then go on to be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. None of those things look like they're going to happen right now. I mean, how can you explain how... I mean, it's hard to explain, but USC, you almost feel bad for Matt Barkley, a guy who turned down being in the NFL starting right now, making millions of dollars for, they thought there was no way that this USC team was not going to go to the national championship game. Now those chances look minimal. I mean, what was the biggest struggle you saw at USC last night, even though you minimally watched the game?
This team is so well-rounded talent-wise, and they should be so much better at pretty much everything they do. If I'm going to pinpoint it, they didn't look great on the offensive line to me. Last year with Matt Khalil at left tackle, this looks like one of the most solid lines in all of college football to me. But last night, it really looked like Matt Barkley was getting pressure in his face. Matt Barkley is a great drop back and pass type of guy, has an absolute cannon, and has great accuracy. But when a guy like that's getting pressured, it's really hard for them to succeed. So personally, I thought the line was bad, but I think they can pretty much improve in most areas of their game.
Absolutely. I mean, Barkley is a senior, and he ended up going 0-4 against Stanford. Stanford has beaten USC 4 straight times. So, I guess Stanford just has USC's number. There's no getting around that. from another team's standpoint, from other teams who are, in national championship distance, they see USC as a loss, and it kind of opens their eye and says, hey, we have a chance at possibly getting to the BCS title game. One team I look at is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They certainly would if they went undefeated with their schedule. They looked really good against Michigan State last night, but they do face Michigan this week, Miami, Stanford, BYU, at Oklahoma, at Norman. Definitely a crazy atmosphere to go play in. Versus Pitt, at Boston College, versus Wake Forest, and at USC to close out the season. Where do you see Notre Dame when it's all said and done? Right now they're 11th ranked. They're only allowing 10 points a game. Their defense has been phenomenal. They went in to Michigan State and beat them 20-3. How impressed are you with this Notre Dame team, and what should the expectations be for the rest of the season from here on out?
I'm very impressed with the Notre Dame team. Unlike the last years under Charlie Weiss, even under Coach Brian Kelly, who they actually, I think, been a little overrated under the last couple of years. They haven't been a very tough football team. This is a team doing a great job on the defensive side of the ball. 8th in the country, actually, in points allowed. Like you said, 10 points per game. As we look down the schedule here, it starts to scare me a little bit for their sleeper national candidacy, national trophy talk. You look at next week, you got number 18 Michigan with that just bizarre offense they run with Denard Robinson. Not so much bizarre, really, but it's just a different look when you have a quarterback that is just as good with his feet as he is with his arm. I'd say they win that game. I'd say they beat Miami. I'd say they get pummeled against Stanford. I think Stanford is going to absolutely destroy this team. I think they're just a much more well-rounded team. I think that'll really be their one bad loss of the season. And then the other two teams I think they have a shot at losing against. We already talked about SC. I think they could lose. And then Oklahoma is a very interesting game. Oklahoma, a very talented roster, ranked number 6 in the country. I say they go about, 8-4, 9-3. They have such a tough schedule. It's just going to make it hard for them to really get into the national title picture.
Well, that's certainly a good point you bring up there. Oklahoma, a very tough place to go in and play against. They didn't look too good in their opener at UTEP, but rebounded against an FCS team. Florida A&M, and of course Oklahoma is going to have to deal with that tough Big 12 schedule. How do you like their chances for a national championship? They have Landry Jones and Kenny Still, one of the best quarterback wide receiver combos. They have a very good defense. Do you like this team's chance at the national championship, or do you think that they're going to find a weakness along the way and lose 1 or 2 games?
Oh, no doubt. You have to consider them in the national championship picture. It seems like every year you have to consider the Sooners in the national championship picture. Landry Jones, when I watch this guy, looks like the best quarterback in the nation when he's on his game. This season has actually been a little off, in my personal opinion, but if he can get it rolling, do what I know he can do, it could be a very scary team down there in Norman. However, once again, I think the schedule is going to get in the way. I think they lose at West Virginia, and I think they lose at TCU, 2 very unfamiliar teams to this Oklahoma team. That I think both of them will be able to come out on top against Oklahoma, because Oklahoma is playing away from home against both these teams. So I don't think they make the national championship. However, I do think they go to the BCS game.
Certainly hostile environments at West Virginia and at TCU. And, of course, Oklahoma, like all teams, except Alabama, has their flaws. You bring up West Virginia. I mean, we could talk for hours on all these fantastic teams in the top 25. Texas just put up 66 points at Ole Miss. Kansas State looks as good as they did last year. Braxton Miller of Ohio State looks like a Heisman candidate. West Virginia has Geno Smith, another Heisman candidate. South Carolina looks fantastic with Connor Shaw running the helm. Florida State just blew out Wake Forest 52-0. Oregon's the same up-tempo, fast, unstoppable offense that they always are. And LSU just seems to find a way to kill everybody on their schedule. But a team that has caught my eye and has really caught the nation's eye, especially after their upset over Nebraska 2 weeks ago, is UCLA. Brett Hundley, the new redshirt freshman quarterback, has been absolutely fantastic for the Bruins so far this season. as he has led them, like I said, to the number 19 ranking. He's already at 827 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, and Jonathan Franklin has emerged as a Heisman candidate as well. He's ran for 541 yards on the ground, averaging 8.2 yards per carry, and he scored 3 touchdowns. Obviously, this team has played a couple of lower tier Conference USA teams, but did get that win over Nebraska. How do you see UCLA shaping up for the rest of the season?
Okay, this is a very puzzling team. It is a very, very talented team. Right now, if you look at this team's roster, I think they have a potential Heisman candidate in Jonathan Franklin with his just massive amount of yardage, 200-yard games for him. As you go down the schedule, Oregon State beat Wisconsin. I don't think Wisconsin's very good this season. I say UCLA beats Oregon State. Colorado's pathetic. They beat Colorado. They beat Cal. They beat Utah. They beat Arizona State. They play Arizona at home. I think it'll be a close game. I say UCLA pulls that out. And then USC and Stanford, I say they win one and lose one. Two very good teams, but UCLA, for the first time in years, has a solid quarterback, and that defense is very, very strong. And before I start talking about UCLA here, I got to give a shout out to my man, Tony Jones, who scored a touchdown on offense yesterday, catching a touchdown in the red zone. Great catch, and then on 3 plays later, he sacked the quarterback. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. Chris?
Well, certainly he's one of many very exciting players for this UCLA team this season, and for the first time in a long time, it seems like these UCLA fans are actually happy that it's football season, college football season. So definitely, like every Saturday, I can't wait for Saturdays during the college football season. One team I did want to talk about that has just not looked like they usually look, and I know you followed this team very closely, the Wisconsin Badgers, who are 2-1, and their only loss was a 3-point loss at Oregon State. But this team's only scoring 16.3 points per game. Danny O'Brien is not what they thought he would be. They had Stave, the backup quarterback, come in for the second half of last night's game. Monty Ball is only averaging 3.8 yards per carry. This team struggled to beat a team from the WAC. Despite this team took down Utah last week. It's a very good WAC team in Utah State. They only won 16-14. They struggled with their FCS opponent, Northern Iowa. They only won that game 26-21. And, of course, only scored 7 points at Oregon State. What has been the big problem with Wisconsin this season?
Oh, it's no question the offensive line. This is the worst offensive line the Wisconsin Badgers have had in years. My dad, who went to Wisconsin, told me this is the worst Wisconsin team he's seen since the beginning of the Barry Alvarez era. Barry Alvarez was there in the beginning of the 90s. Wisconsin was one of the putrid football teams, and that's what they look like right now. This offensive line is so badly weakened from last year that Monty Ball has no form for money. You watch an entire game like I have. I've watched all 3 Wisconsin games. Monty Ball has no holes to run it. These guys are not opening up any lanes. I complained last year about Josh Oglesby. Apparently great. I never thought he was very good on the right side, right tackle. Now they just can't open any holes on the right side. They have a bunch of new people over there. Hazenstein is one of them. He has looked very bad to me at right tackle. And then you have Joe Stave playing quarterback for you. This guy is so bad looking on the field, but he looks better than Daniel Bryan. It's so sad to see Wisconsin in the state for me. The defense looks okay, kind of like they always do, but you can't have it. It's just so defense, and your offense is not as good as it has been in years.
Well, they're going to obviously need to improve, or else they're going to get torched in Big Ten play. There's already 3 teams ranked in the Big Ten, and of course there's good teams that they play like Illinois, Purdue, and at Penn State. They do play UTEP next week, who has taken Oklahoma and Ole Miss to the brink in their first 2 games, were victorious over New Mexico State yesterday. Who should we expect to start for the Badgers against the Miners?
It better be Stave. He looks okay to me, but he held on to the football very well. Danny O'Brien I have not seen a player so overhyped in my